Good morning. Welcome to Buckwheat Farms Magic Emporium and Ballroom. This is everything we do is magic. I don't know what episode it is. We'll look it up and it'll be posted on the title page down below. But as I promised yesterday, I am going to talk to you today about creating a servitor and what servitors are. This will be a two-parter because there's a lot involved in it. So this is part one of creating a servitor. First of all, what is a servitor? And before I get there, you got to understand that from my standpoint, and again, this is my standpoint, all is mental. Everything that is created, everything that has come into being, everything that exists solely within the realm of my mind, and all of this reality, these touchable, tangible reality, is simply a projection of that mind. It's so powerful. I mean, think about how strong virtual reality is. That and we've talked about the concept of just the thoughts themselves and how thoughts can actually change who and what we are and what happens to us. So that is the thing, that magic basically is using my will to create my desire. Now, most of the magic that we deal with is either rituals, certain rituals will bring about, I do certain rituals to bring about certain effects and certain causes, and sigils, and even working with spirit entities. And with all of those, there's kind of a level of uncertainty, because it's kind of like, let's put this out there. These are my desires, and I will trust the universe. I'll trust my intent to bring those desires working with those entities. Where with the servitor, we're actually creating the spirit. So it's kind of designer magic. You are creating a spirit. Now the spirit will have still your mind, or my mind when I create it, my heart, my soul. It's still very, very much a part of me, but it's still a separate, self-aware entity. It serves my deepest desires, my deepest wants. So what actually is a servitor? It is a created being. It's self-aware. They're an entity, a separate entity, made of energy, just like we are. And they exist in a different realm, but they do exist. They're not imaginary friends. I mean, even though that kind of, that is a type of a servitor, I guess, and when we're young, we have them, our imaginary friends, and maybe as we get older, we have them as well. But that kind of belittles the idea of a servitor, because the servitor has all of the heart and soul, again, of its creator. It is to use the analogy of the hologram, that every bit of you exists in each and every bit of the servitor. Your energy is carried forth into that servitor. So what can servitors do? What can you use a servitor for? And this is kind of interesting, because you can use a servitor for pretty much anything. Because I create the servitor, there's no guesswork about how it's going to come about or what the results are. I'll know when it's working because I've got some specific or general parameters to gauge. And they can be created for general purposes or very specific tasks. So say if you desire to create a servitor to help you lose weight, or to say help you write the next great novel. Now, a couple things to bear in mind, that it's got to be in line with your true will. when we were doing the street ministry over on Houston Avenue, we would have the kids come in from the neighborhood on Friday nights to watch movies, and we had popcorn and hot chocolate. It was a pretty cool thing. And one of the kids all the time talked about how he wanted to be an NBA player. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you, do you play now? No, I just want to be an NBA player. Well, that's not his true will. Again, that's someone's outside expectation that he's grabbed hold of. And so servitors, and that's one of their purposes, is to help you determine what your true will is, because as you begin to design it, as you begin to put the servitor, develop your servitor, these are the things that kind of come out. It's kind of an internal, an introspection that it causes. So what they can do is you can use servitors for self-development. As I said, say I want to write I want to write a novel, and so you would design your servitor to help you create the novel. Or if you want to gain a different perspective, you create a servitor to help you see, say, the Black Lives Matter movement in a different light, and the servitor will do that. Or influence, if you want to create a servitor that will draw people to the book that you wrote and influence them to purchase that book. That's a legitimate and creative means to develop the servitor. And understanding that they are part of us, and so will there be things that you do that line up and see, this is the thing. It's so hard to describe how this move works. But remember, our minds cannot discern. Our true mind cannot discern the effects on our physical body. Cannot discern between the real and the placebo or the imagined. And that the imagined is just as real to our body, real as reality as we consider it, as the solid, concrete reality. So believing is seeing. If you believe it, you will see it. All is mental, all is thought. And that's the key element to remember when you're creating your servitor. So I want to start with creating the servitor. I want to give you, there are going to be 3 steps to creating the servitor. Today, I want to talk about the vision, to set your servitor to what you want your servitor to do. This is the defining element. This is where you are putting all the pieces together. This is where you're going to use my other analogy about the chopped kitchen. You're going through and you're pulling out all of the ingredients that you deem necessary to create the servitor to do what you wish to happen. The first thing is vision. You set a purpose and goals for the servitor. Purpose. What is the purpose for your servitor? What is it that you want your servitor to accomplish? What is it that you want done? What is your true will? And that exercise in and of itself is a really powerful thing. And so this process is really, really good for you as far as a meditative process. If you're not into the meditative process, just start creating servitors and you'll start uncovering yourself. The powers. What abilities do you want your servitor to have? And again, the sky is the limit, except that you want it to be something that's in line with your true desire, your true will, and also slightly within the realm of possibility. You can, but you'd be highly unsuccessful to create a servitor to say, I want to win $1 million. Well, that's way out there on the realm of probability, simply because there are so many others who are putting that intent out there. you be probably more successful by breaking that down into, I want to earn $1 million, into breaking it down into, as they say, eating the elephant in bite-sized pieces. And that's what you want to do with your purpose and your powers as well. Powers of persuasion, powers, you can give your servitor the ability to bring about fair judgments. I mean, anything that you would want them to do is that their powers. And again, what you're developing is a living entity. So the more you think of this as a living entity, the more you put into this development of your entity, the more real it becomes. And this is very vital as we get to the bringing it to life stage, which will come later in the second part. Timing. When and how do you want your servitor to work? Is it to work in perpetuity, or is it to be for just a certain period of time, or until a certain thing is accomplished? Appearance. This is important because you want to have your servitor have an appearance that you can envision and remember. And you don't have to have the greatest imagination at all. Remember, all you've got to say is to yourself, I imagine this, and describe it, and your mind will walk hand in hand with that intention. Naming and calling. What will you name your servitor? And this is something, again, to take some time and thought into, because our names are important and what we call ourselves. So give your servitor a name associated with what your desire is for that servitor. And the calling. How will you call the servitor? And again, these things are things we will get to in depth in future videos. Sustenance. How will your servitor feed? One of the common things I use to feed my servitors is my attention. Because again, we talked about whatever you focus your attention on, that's energy that feeds it. You will increase the probability, the likelihood of that happening. If you focus on negative things, you increase the probability of negative things. So there's focus, that's one sustenance. Thankfulness at the results, that's a type of sustenance. There are other forms of sustenance, and we'll talk about that. Location. Where will the servitor be housed when it's not performing its duties? Some people choose places upon their body. Some people choose, like for me, I will often have my servitors housed in the sigils that represent them, and then a fatal flaw. And this, because servitors are self-aware, created entities, they can either outlive their usefulness or go rogue sometimes. And this is something that happens. And when that happens, you design a fatal flaw, which will will cause the servitor to cease to exist. And we'll talk about that as well. So what we're going to do is again, as you think about these things, setting up and creating your servitor, this little exercise for you before we get to the next video. We'll talk about the other parts of the video, other parts of the servitor as far as creating it and calling it to life after you set the vision. So after you watch this video, decide kind of, what do I want to happen? What is it that I really want to happen in my life? And take some time with that. Not, gosh, what would make Mom and Dad happy and proud, and what would make Teacher Jones really think highly of me? What would make, my friends? Think about what would make you truly happy. What is it that if you could do one thing for the rest of your life and have fun doing it? I know for my grandson Tyson, it's probably playing video games. Well, if that's it, then create a servitor that makes it possible for you to make a living creating video games. But you begin to think about your servitor, begin to get an idea, and begin to think about some of the things about purpose, about the powers, about the timing. We'll get into those specifics in the next video. But come back with the next video and have kind of a general idea of these things. What you want your servitor to look like, naming and calling. It'll come a lot easier to you than you realize, because what you're doing is not learning. You're remembering how we are to operate. Remember, everything we do is magic.